By early September 1914, the German army was moving with terrifying speed. After crushing Allied forces at the borders, they swept through Belgium and into northern France. By the first few days of the month, German troops were within a shocking 30 kilometers of Paris. The situation was so dire that the French government had already evacuated the capital. They relocated to the city of Bordeaux, fully expecting Paris to fall at any moment. But then, the commander of the German First Army, General Alexander von Kluck, made a choice. Instead of continuing his march around the capital, he abruptly ordered his men to turn southeast, pivoting away from Paris. Why would the architect of a highly successful invasion abandon his master plan just miles from the finish line? That single, localized decision would halt the German advance and dictate the terms of a grueling 4-year global conflict. This map illustrates the core geometry of Germany's original strategy, the Schlieffen Plan. The design required a massive sweep, with German forces wrapping wide around the western edge of Paris before curling back to crush the French army from behind. The entire plan relied on a strict time limit. Germany needed to knock France out of the fight immediately, securing the Western Front before the massive Russian army could fully mobilize on their eastern border. Up until the first days of September, the strategy was working almost perfectly. The Allied forces were locked in a constant, frantic retreat as the German advance pressed deeper into France. But von Kluck grew concerned about losing contact with the retreating French troops directly ahead of him. He wanted to maintain constant direct pressure, so he cut the corner, turning his forces southeast instead of executing the wide, time-consuming sweep around the city. In doing so, he traded the safety of the master plan for immediate tactical pressure, creating a massive risk that left Germany highly vulnerable to a two-front war. By pivoting southeast, von Kluck opened up an unprotected edge, an exposed right flank, putting his army directly within striking distance of Paris. French Commander General Joseph Joffre immediately spotted the mistake. He began quietly repositioning his exhausted troops, assembling a new army specifically to strike that open flank. At the same time, he convinced the retreating British forces to stop falling back and prepare a coordinated counteroffensive. To make the counterattack work, the French needed to get thousands of reserve troops out to the front lines faster than the rail lines allowed. The military governor of Paris, General Joseph Gallieni, came up with a highly unconventional solution. He requisitioned the city's fleet of commercial taxicabs. Hundreds of ordinary civilian cars were packed with soldiers and driven straight into the battle zone. This rapid infusion of reinforcements allowed the Allies to spring their trap, catching the German command completely off guard on September 5th, before von Kluck could correct his position. What followed was days of chaotic, brutal combat across the Marne River Valley, with well over 1 million soldiers fighting along a massive front. Under intense pressure, von Kluck was forced to defend his exposed side, aggressively diverting troops away from the center. This shift created a new problem. A wide, undefended gap tore open directly between his First Army and the Second Army. The combined British and French forces pushed directly into that empty space. By occupying that void, the Allies were perfectly positioned to split the German offensive right down the middle, creating a very real threat of total encirclement. Facing a catastrophic collapse, German commanders made an agonizing call on September 9th. They ordered a general retreat, pulling their forces back to the Aisne River. The immediate crisis was over, and Paris was safe. The forward momentum that had defined the opening leaks of the war was stopped cold. This diagram shows the aftermath. After falling back, both armies tried repeatedly to outmaneuver one another. They pushed further and further north, each side desperately searching for another exposed flank to exploit, in a series of maneuvers known as the Race to the Sea. Neither side succeeded. They just kept extending their defensive positions northward until they quite literally ran out of land, stopping only when they reached the English Channel. By late 1914, millions of soldiers began digging in. That continuous line from Switzerland to the sea solidified into hundreds of miles of defensive trenches. The fast-paced, mobile warfare that characterized the invasion was gone, replaced by a grueling, static stalemate. Because they failed to capture Paris and knock France out of the fight quickly, the German army found itself permanently trapped in the exact scenario their planners feared most, fighting a massive war on two fronts simultaneously. In a matter of days, the belief that the conflict would be over by Christmas vanished. A single tactical decision on the outskirts of Paris had halted an invasion and guaranteed 4 years of grinding violence.